Welcome to Monk's Temple. Breathe with me. Not the quick breath of a mind chasing obligations. Not the tight breath of a heart braced for bad news. Slower. Deeper. The breath that remembers it has nowhere to go and nothing to prove. Every spiritual tradition begins with the breath. Not because it is sacred. The breath is ordinary. It has been with you since your first moment and will remain until your last. It asks nothing. And because it is so faithful, the breath becomes the bridge between the life you think you are living and the life that is actually living you. Tonight, we speak of three bridges: Theravāda, Mahāyāna, and Vajrayāna. Not museum pieces. Maps of human consciousness. They describe the territory you inhabit every day, your own mind, with its peaks of insight and valleys of confusion. Theravāda is the map of the one who walks alone. Mahāyāna is the map of the one who walks with all beings. Vajrayāna is the map of the one who discovers the path is walking you. Three maps. One territory. And you, the explorer, holding all three. Here is what the maps do not tell you: you have already begun. You did not arrive here by accident. Something in you recognized something in these words. The sense that the life you are living is not quite the life you came here to live. Not wrong. Not failed. Just incomplete. As if you are hearing a symphony from the next room, feeling the vibration but not the melody. That incompleteness is not a flaw. It is the path, recognizing itself, and calling you home. There was once a woman who spent her life polishing a single stone. She found it at 7 years old, buried in river mud. It was not beautiful. Pockmarked and stained, with a deep fissure through its center. But when she held it, she felt something she could not name. She carried the stone home. That night, she rubbed it against her bedsheet. The next day, she found wool and continued. Days became weeks. Her family thought her strange. Her friends grew bored and wandered away. But she continued her patient, incomprehensible labor. Decades passed. The pockmarks faded. The stain revealed itself as amber, golden in certain lights. The fissure remained, but its edges softened. On her deathbed, her daughter asked, "Mother, why did you spend your life polishing a stone?" The woman looked at the stone, smooth as water, warm as skin, reflecting light onto the ceiling. "I was not polishing the stone," she said. "I was learning to see what was already there." This is Theravāda. Not the accumulation of wisdom. Not the transformation of self into something better. Theravāda is the removal of what obscures. The patient, daily work of rubbing away habit and assumption until what has always been present finally becomes visible. The Buddha did not claim to have become something new. He claimed to have seen through something old. The house of self was inspected, beam by beam, and discovered to have never been a permanent dwelling at all. This is the radical claim at the heart of Theravāda: you are not who you think you are. You believe you are a continuous self, a stable observer. But where is this self located? In your thoughts. Thoughts arise and dissolve. In your body. Cells regenerate. The body you inhabited 10 years ago is a foreign country. In your memories. Memories are reconstructions, altered each time you revisit them. Theravāda does not ask you to believe the self is absent. Belief is just another thought. Theravāda asks you to investigate. To look directly at your own experience with the same patient attention the woman brought to her stone. To notice that the self you take for granted is a construction. Useful, perhaps, but not final. This investigation requires no faith, no membership, no initiation. It requires only the willingness to sit with yourself and observe what actually arises. When you are anxious, where is the anxiety? Your chest. Your throat. Do not try to change it. Simply feel it. When you are angry, what is the texture of that anger? Hot or cold? Do not justify it. Do not suppress it. Simply acknowledge that this, too, is arising. When you are peaceful, where does that peace reside? Do not grasp at it. Simply receive it, as you would receive an unexpected gift. This is the path of Theravāda, compressed into a single instruction: pay attention. Not special attention. Not perfect attention. Just attention, ordinary and sustained, the way water flowing over stone eventually wears away everything that is not stone. Modern neuroscience confirms what Buddhist practitioners have known for 25 centuries. The brain cannot distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is actually experienced. This is why a nightmare leaves you sweating, heart racing, though you never left your bed. The mind is not a passive recorder of reality. It is an active constructor of reality. And its primary construction project is the construction of you. Theravāda meditation is the systematic deconstruction of this project. Not because the self is unreal. The self is real the way a rainbow is real. Visible, vibrant, and utterly dependent on conditions. Remove the sunlight, remove the raindrops, remove the angle of observation, and the rainbow vanishes. Not because it was destroyed. Because it was never a standalone entity. Theravāda reveals that your suffering is not caused by the world's failure to meet your expectations. Your suffering is caused by your identification with expectations that were never yours to begin with. You did not choose to believe pleasure is preferable to pain. That belief was implanted by evolution and conditioning. You did not choose to believe praise is preferable to blame. That belief was reinforced by every approving smile and disappointed frown of your childhood. Theravāda offers not a new set of beliefs but a method for examining all beliefs. It doubts not external reality, but the doubter. It questions the questioner. It investigates the investigator. And what it discovers, in the silence beyond thought, is not meaninglessness but pure awareness. Luminous. Empty. Free. Not free from suffering. Free in suffering. Not free from the self. Free in the recognition that the self was never the prison you believed it to be. If this first map resonates with you, you have already taken the first step. You have looked into the mirror and recognized that something needs to change. Not through effort. Not through struggle. Through recognition. Subscribe to Monk's Temple. Not because we have answers you lack, but because we are fellow travelers on this journey of waking up. Each week, we return to this ancient stream of wisdom, not to worship it but to drink from it. If that invitation stirs something in your chest, press the button below. Let the current carry us both. Welcome back. Breathe with me. Not the breath of the world outside. That breath was shallow, quick. This breath is slower. Deeper. The breath that has been waiting for you to return. In our first hour, we explored Theravāda. The mirror. The path of the one who walks alone. We discovered the self you have been defending was never a fortress. It was a reflection. Visible. Useful. Not the whole story. But here is what the mirror cannot show you. A mirror shows your face, but not the face beside you. It reveals your fatigue, but not the hidden suffering of your neighbor, your colleague, the stranger who smiles at you and goes home to an empty apartment. For that, you need a different kind of seeing. There was once a man who lived his entire life on the shores of a great sea. He was a fisherman. He knew the tides. He knew which winds brought abundance and which brought danger. But he had never entered the water. The water was for traveling upon, he told himself. The water was for harvesting. Not for immersion. One evening, a storm rose. The sky turned the color of bruises. The man, rushing to secure his boat, slipped on rain-slicked wood and fell into the churning sea. For a terrible moment, he thrashed. His lungs burned. He had spent 50 years on the water and never learned to swim. And then, in his panic, he inhaled. Not air. Water. He waited for death. But death did not come. His body, which had been fighting the sea, began to relax into it. His arms grew still. His legs floated upward. In that stillness, he discovered the water was not his enemy. The water was holding him. He opened his eyes beneath the surface and saw what he had traveled upon for 5 decades without ever truly seeing. Fish darting through kelp. Light bending into rainbows. A world where every drop was connected to every other drop. They found him the next morning, floating on his back. "Are you all right?" they asked. He smiled. "I have been dry my entire life," he said. "Today, I learned to be wet." This is Mahāyāna. Not solitary investigation. Immersion. Not the mirror revealing self. The ocean dissolving boundaries between self and other. Not, what am I, but, who am I with? Mahāyāna emerged from a single devastating insight. Early Buddhists were achieving awakening. They were crossing the stream, extinguishing greed, hatred, and delusion, entering nirvana. And yet, as they stood on the far shore, they looked back and saw countless beings still struggling in the waters of suffering. The mother grieving her dead child. The farmer whose crops failed. The old man begging at the temple gate. And they asked a question that changed Buddhism forever: can I celebrate my own dry land while my neighbor is still drowning? The answer, for some, was no. These monks did not reject the Buddha. They simply turned around. They walked back into the water. They vowed not to rest until every being reached the shore. They called themselves bodhisattvas. Beings committed not to their own liberation but to the liberation of all. They called their path Mahāyāna, the great vehicle, because its capacity was vast enough to carry every sentient being, from the highest god to the smallest ant. All of them. Not one left behind. Modern psychology confirms what Mahāyāna has known for 2,000 years. Human beings are not self-sufficient islands. We are born into relationship. We develop within relationship. We heal through relationship. No infant survives without responsive caregiving. No child learns language without exposure to speakers. No adult thrives in complete isolation. We are, from first breath to last, relational beings. Our sense of self emerges from countless interactions with countless others. Mahāyāna takes this to its conclusion: the self is not a noun but a verb. Not a static entity but a dynamic process of relating. When this relating is characterized by grasping and aversion, we suffer. When it is characterized by generosity and wisdom, we flourish. This leads to a radical conclusion: your liberation and my liberation are not separate. You cannot become free alone. Not ultimately. Because the you that seeks freedom is not a standalone entity but a node in an infinite web of relationship. Cut the web, the node vanishes. Heal the web, every node is healed. This is why the Bodhisattva vows to save all beings. Not out of heroic sacrifice. Not out of guilt. But from the recognition that there are no beings to save, only Buddha nature, momentarily obscured, calling out to itself across the illusion of separation. Your suffering calls to my compassion. My confusion calls to your wisdom. In that space between call and response, something arises. Not your awakening or mine. Our awakening. How does one practice Mahāyāna? Not by becoming more compassionate. You already are compassionate, whenever the barriers of self-concern drop. Mahāyāna asks you to notice this. To recognize compassion not as something to acquire but as something to stop blocking. Begin with yourself. Sit quietly. Offer yourself the wish: may I be happy. May I be safe. May I be free from suffering. Notice the resistance. Perhaps you don't believe you deserve happiness. Observe this belief. It is just a thought. Extend the wish to someone you love. Visualize them. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you be free from suffering. Notice the warmth. Stay with it. Extend to a neutral person. The barista. The driver beside you. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you be free from suffering. Extend to someone difficult. The one who hurt you. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you be free from suffering. Notice what arises. Resistance. Anger. Grief. Do not suppress. Simply observe that even this person wishes to be happy, just as you do. Finally, extend to all beings, everywhere, without exception. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be free from suffering. This is not a prayer. No one is listening. This is training. You are training your heart to recognize what your intellect already knows: the boundaries between self and other are permeable, conventional, and ultimately illusory. You are practicing becoming ocean. A grandmother in Kyoto had practiced this loving-kindness meditation for 40 years. Her grandson, a university student studying psychology, asked her, "Grandmother, do you really believe your wishes reach all those beings?" She smiled. "Whether they reach them or not, my boy, is not the point. I am the one who changes. I am the one who becomes capable of kindness." And a heart trained in kindness, like a hand trained in calligraphy, eventually writes beautiful characters without even thinking. The grandson was silent. Then he asked, "Will you teach me?" She took his hands in hers. "You have already begun. If this second map calls to you, you have already begun to sense that your liberation is not separate from the liberation of those around you. The walls you built to protect your heart are also the walls that imprison it. Subscribe to Monk's Temple. Not as a consumer of content but as a practitioner of connection. Each week, we return to this ocean of relationship, not to admire it from the shore but to immerse ourselves in its depths. Press the button below. Let the current carry us both. Breathe with me. Not the breath of memory, replaying old wounds. Not the breath of anticipation, bracing for future storms. This breath is right here, right now, filling your lungs with exactly what this moment requires. In our first hour, we held the mirror of Theravāda. We looked directly at our experience and discovered the self was never a solid thing to defend. It was a reflection. Useful. And not the whole story. In our second hour, we entered the ocean of Mahāyāna. We felt the dissolution of boundaries between self and other. We recognized that your liberation and my liberation are not separate events. We began practicing becoming water. But here is what the mirror and the ocean cannot show you. The mirror reveals what is already present. The ocean dissolves what separates. But neither shows you what to do with the energy that arises when you truly see the raw, untamed, terrifying power of your own awakened heart. For that, you need a third map. There was once a king who owned a diamond of unimaginable purity. It contained no flaws, no occlusions, no internal fractures. Light passed through it and emerged transformed, broken into rainbows that danced upon the walls of the throne room. But the king was not satisfied. He wanted to know the diamond's secret. He summoned jewelers, alchemists, philosophers. Each examined the stone and offered theories. It is the purity of the carbon, one said. It is the pressure of the earth over eons, said another. It is the alignment of the stars at its formation, said a third. The king grew frustrated. He banished the experts and sat alone with the diamond in the darkness of his chamber. He turned it over and over in his palms. He held it to his eye and peered into its depths. And then, in the silence, the diamond spoke. "You seek my secret," the diamond said. "But I have no secret. I am simply what remains when everything that is not diamond has been removed. The pressure, the time, the alignment, these were not me. They were the conditions of my becoming. But now that I am simply this. I do not try to be diamond. I do not fear becoming charcoal. I am what I am. And because I am fully what I am, I can cut through anything that is not itself. This is Vajrayāna. If Theravāda is the mirror and Mahāyāna is the ocean, Vajrayāna is the diamond. Not because it is harder or better than the other paths. Because it operates according to a completely different principle. Theravāda purifies. Mahāyāna expands. Vajrayāna transforms. Vajrayāna emerged in the crucible of medieval India and found its fullest expression in the isolated valleys of Tibet. It is, without question, the most misunderstood of the three Buddhist traditions. To outsiders, its practices can appear bizarre, even disturbing. Its deities wear necklaces of severed heads and dance upon corpses. Its rituals involve complex visualizations and esoteric syllables. Its teachers speak of achieving enlightenment not in countless eons, but in this very lifetime. This is not arrogance. This is not delusion. This is alchemy. In medieval Europe, alchemists sought to transform lead into gold. Most were charlatans. But a few understood that the outer work was a symbol for an inner process. The transformation of base metal into noble metal represented the transformation of the base mind into the awakened mind. Vajrayāna is alchemical Buddhism. Where Theravāda says, abandon anger, Vajrayāna asks, what is the essence of anger? Where Mahāyāna says, cultivate compassion for those who harm you, Vajrayāna asks, what is the nature of the mind that perceives harm? The Vajrayāna practitioner does not reject the world of passion, aggression, and ignorance. They do not merely tolerate it. They enter it fully, not as a participant in delusion, but as a scientist entering a laboratory. They recognize that the energy which, when distorted, becomes craving is the very same energy which, when recognized, becomes boundless love. The energy which, when blocked, becomes hatred is the very same energy which, when flowing freely, becomes wisdom's sharp clarity. This is why Vajrayāna iconography can appear frightening. The wrathful deities are not demons to be propitiated. They are aspects of your own mind depicted in symbolic form. Their multiple arms represent capacities you have not yet developed. Their upraised weapons are not instruments of violence but of cutting through illusion. They dance on corpses because they have triumphed over death, over ego, over every limited identification. Modern trauma therapy recognizes that suppressed material does not disappear. It festers. The patient who cannot acknowledge their anger does not become peaceful, they become passive-aggressive. The patient who cannot face their shame does not become confident, they become perfectionistic and controlling. Vajrayāna, alone among ancient spiritual traditions, developed a comprehensive methodology for working directly with the shadow. Consider the practice of chod. The practitioner visualizes offering their own body to demons and hungry ghosts. To the uninitiated, this appears macabre. To the practitioner, it is the ultimate antidote to fear. What do you most dread? Loss of physical integrity? Death? Annihilation? Fine. Visualize it completely, willingly, with generosity. And discover that the one who fears cannot be annihilated, because it was never born. This is not fantasy. This is exposure therapy, developed centuries before Freud and refined in the hermitages of the Himalayas. The Vajrayāna practitioner confronts, in vivid imaginal detail, precisely what the ego most wishes to avoid. And in that confrontation, the fear loses its power. A merchant in ancient Tibet was known throughout the region for his terrible temper. His outbursts had cost him his marriage, his friendships, and nearly his business. In desperation, he sought out a famous tantric master. Please, the merchant begged, give me a practice to eliminate my anger. The master looked at him for a long time. I will not help you eliminate your anger. But why? Because your anger is not the enemy. Your anger is your untrained wisdom. It moves quickly, cuts through pretense, and refuses to tolerate injustice. These are not flaws. These are qualities that, properly directed, make an excellent practitioner. The merchant was confused. Then what should I do? Your anger is like a wild horse, the master said. You have spent your life trying to kill it. No wonder it has trampled you. Learn to ride it. This is Vajrayāna. Not the elimination of what troubles you. The transformation of the troubler into the guide. How does one practice Vajrayāna? Not by becoming something new. By recognizing what you already are. The next time anger arises, do not suppress it. Do not express it recklessly. Simply pause and ask, what is the nature of this energy? Is it solid or fluid? Does it have a color, a shape, a temperature? Where is it located? Does it have a beginning, a middle, an end? Do not try to answer these questions conceptually. Investigate directly, the way you would examine a strange object found on the road. Turn it over in your awareness. Look at it from all sides. What you may discover is that anger, when examined closely, is not a single thing. It is a constellation of sensations, tightness here, heat there, a pulsing somewhere else. These sensations arise, persist briefly, and dissolve. They are not you. They are visitors. And visitors, even unwelcome ones, eventually leave. This is the beginning of alchemy. Not the elimination of the base metal. The recognition that it was always gold, merely disguised. Breathe with me. Not the breath of striving. The breath that says, I must get somewhere, become something. That breath is exhaustion disguised as ambition. Release it. This breath knows it has already arrived. In our first hour, we held the mirror of Theravāda. We discovered the self was never a solid fortress. It was a reflection. Clear, useful, and not the whole story. In our second hour, we entered the ocean of Mahāyāna. We felt boundaries between self and other dissolve. We began practicing becoming water. In our third hour, we received the diamond of Vajrayāna. We learned anger is not the enemy but untrained wisdom. We began the alchemy of transformation. But here is what the mirror, the ocean, and the diamond cannot show you alone. They are maps. Beautiful maps. But a map is not the territory. Reading about swimming is not immersion. The question is not which map is correct. The question is, will you walk? There was once a pilgrim who spent 40 years searching for a sacred mountain. He had read about it in ancient texts. He had dreamed of it since childhood, the mountain where all paths converge, where seekers from every tradition lay down their burdens. He crossed deserts. He traversed oceans. He spent his inheritance, his health, his youth. And still, the mountain eluded him. One evening, old and exhausted, he collapsed beneath a tree at the edge of a small village. A child approached. "Grandfather, why are you crying?" "I have spent my life seeking the sacred mountain," the pilgrim whispered, "and I have never found it." The child laughed. "But grandfather, you are sitting at the foot of it." The pilgrim looked up. And there it was. The mountain he had sought for 40 years. It had been beneath him, around him, within him, his entire life. He had been too busy seeking to notice. This is the fourth map. The map that reveals you're not a traveler on the path. You are the path. Theravāda, Mahāyāna, Vajrayāna. 3 vehicles. 3 maps. 3 approaches to the single project of waking up. But here is what the elders, the bodhisattvas, and the tantric masters all knew: the finger pointing at the moon is not the moon. Theravāda points with precision. Mahāyāna points with compassion. Vajrayāna points with transformation. But the pointing is not the destination. And the destination, when you finally arrive, is revealed to have been the pointing itself. Modern psychology identifies the arrival fallacy. This is the belief that achieving a certain goal, graduation, marriage, promotion, will finally make us happy. We spend years chasing future satisfactions, only to discover satisfaction is brief and quickly replaced by new desires. The arrival fallacy is not a mistake. It is a misplaced instinct. The instinct to seek beyond our present circumstances is not wrong. It is our deepest nature recognizing its own incompleteness. The problem is not the seeking. The problem is believing what we seek is somewhere else, sometime else. Theravāda, Mahāyāna, and Vajrayāna are not three competing destinations. They are three complementary expressions of the same awakened heart, arising in response to three different human temperaments. Some of us need clarity above all else. We are lost in the labyrinth of our own thoughts. For us, Theravāda offers the sharp knife of investigation. Cut through. See clearly. Rest in what remains. Some of us need connection above all else. We are isolated, convinced of our fundamental separateness. For us, Mahāyāna offers the open ocean of relationship. Dissolve the boundaries. Recognize yourself in every being. Love without exemption. Some of us need transformation above all else. We are paralyzed by fear, haunted by patterns we cannot break. For us, Vajrayāna offers the diamond of recognition. Your poison is medicine. Your obstacle is the path. Your darkness is unrecognized light. Three needs. Three paths. One heart. A woman came to a meditation center in distress. She had practiced for 12 years, Theravāda, Mahāyāna, Vajrayāna. Retreats in Thailand. Monasteries in Japan. Teachings in Nepal. She had accumulated more methods than she could count. And I am more confused than when I began, she confessed. Which path is truly the Buddha's teaching? The teacher, an elderly nun, picked up an orange. She peeled it slowly, piling the curls of skin on the table. She separated the segments into a small white crescent. She offered one to the woman. Eat, she said. The woman ate. The juice was sweet. For a moment, her confusion did not vanish, but it also did not matter. The orange does not ask which tree it came from, the nun said. It does not compare soils or climates. It simply offers itself to be tasted. You have studied the tree for 12 years. Perhaps it is time to taste the fruit. How does one practice integration of all three paths? Not by adding more techniques. Not by synthesizing traditions into bland porridge. By recognizing each moment calls forth a different response. When lost in mental confusion, return to Theravāda. Sit. Breathe. Investigate thought itself. Not to eliminate thinking, but to see through the illusion that you are your thoughts. When isolated in self-concern, return to Mahāyāna. Breathe. Open. Offer yourself the wish for happiness, then extend that wish outward. Not to become a savior, but to recognize your well-being and the well-being of all beings are not separate. When paralyzed by fear or shame, return to Vajrayāna. Breathe. Turn toward the difficulty. Ask not, how do I get rid of this, but what is the essence of this? Not to become fearless, but to discover fear, fully met, reveals itself as energy seeking direction. Three paths. One practitioner. Infinite moments. A carpenter was asked by his student, "Master, which tool is most important? The saw that cuts, the hammer that joins, or the plane that smooths?" The carpenter laughed. "When I need to cut, the saw is most important. When I need to join, the hammer is most important. When I need to smooth, the plane is most important. The tool not needed today is not less valuable. It is resting until tomorrow." The student understood. Theravāda is your saw. Mahāyāna is your hammer. Vajrayāna is your plane. Do not ask which is best. Ask what this moment requires. If this fourth map speaks to you, you have already begun to suspect the path is not leading you somewhere else. It is leading you here. More fully here. More wakefully here. More tenderly present to this breath, this moment, this life that is already yours. Subscribe to Monk's Temple. Not to collect more maps. Not to accumulate more methods. But to practice, moment by moment, the art of arriving exactly where you already are. Press the button below. The path is walking you home. Breathe with me. Not the breath of comparison. The breath that measures your progress against others, that counts your years of practice against their years, that whispers, "You should be further along by now." That breath is anxiety dressed as discipline. Release it. This breath has nothing to prove. This breath simply arrives, offers itself, and dissolves. In our first hour, we held the mirror of Theravāda. We saw the self was never solid. A reflection only. In our second hour, we entered the ocean of Mahāyāna. We felt separation dissolve. We practiced becoming water. In our third hour, we received the diamond of Vajrayāna. We learned poison is medicine. Obstacle is path. In our fourth hour, we discovered the pilgrim was always sitting at the foot of the mountain. The path was home. The seeking itself was the arrival. Now we ask a different question. Not which path. Not how far. Not am I there yet. We ask, what is blocking you from seeing what is already here? There was once a man who lived in a house with no windows. He had built it himself, carefully, over many years. The walls were thick. The door was heavy. No light entered, but no wind entered either. He was safe. He was protected. He was alone. One day, a traveler knocked. The man did not answer. The traveler knocked again. Still, the man did not answer. Finally, the traveler spoke through the closed door. "Why have you imprisoned yourself?" "I have not imprisoned myself," the man said. "I have built a refuge. Outside there is danger. Outside there is pain. Outside there is everything that has ever hurt me. Here, inside, I am safe." The traveler was silent for a long time. Then he said, "Open the door, just a little." "Why?" "Because your safety has become your cage. You have protected yourself from pain, yes. But you have also protected yourself from light. From warmth. From the touch of another hand. From everything that makes life worth living." The man did not open the door that day. Or the next. Or the year after. But the traveler's words had entered through the cracks. They grew in the darkness like roots. And one morning, the man placed his hand on the heavy door and pushed. The light was blinding. The wind was cold. His eyes burned. His skin shivered. And yet, he did not close the door. He stood in the threshold, 1 foot inside, 1 foot out, and for the first time in decades, he breathed air that was not his own exhalation. He was not safe. He was alive. This is the 5th map. The map of the threshold. Every path has its obstacles. Theravāda practitioners struggle with doubt. Mahāyāna practitioners struggle with burnout. Vajrayāna practitioners struggle with spiritual materialism, using sacred practices to strengthen the very ego they claim to transcend. But here is what the 5th map reveals: the obstacle is not blocking the path. The obstacle is the path. Doubt is not your enemy. Doubt is the mind's refusal to accept second-hand truths. It is the sharp edge of your own intelligence, demanding direct investigation. Without doubt, you would believe anything. You would be a passive recipient of tradition rather than an active participant in awakening. Burnout is not your enemy. Burnout is compassion without wisdom, giving without receiving, the bodhisattva who forgot she also deserves kindness. It is the messenger delivering urgent news: you cannot pour from an empty vessel. Fill yourself first, not because you are selfish, but because empty vessels help no one. Spiritual materialism is not your enemy. Spiritual materialism is the ego's desperate attempt to survive its own dissolution. It is the last fortress, the final defense. When you notice yourself using practice to feel special, advanced, superior, do not despair. Celebrate. You have discovered a hiding place you did not know existed. Now you can open that door too. Modern psychotherapy recognizes that resistance is not failure. Resistance is information. The client who changes the subject when painful memories arise is not refusing to heal. They are communicating their current capacity. The therapist who honors that resistance, who does not push or shame, creates the conditions for trust. And in that trust, the client eventually turns toward what they once fled. Your spiritual practice is the same. When you avoid sitting meditation, you are not lazy. You are informing yourself that something in your experience feels unsafe to examine. Honor that information. Do not push. Do not shame. Simply note, here is resistance. What is it protecting? The answer, when it comes, will be the next door. When you feel bored during practice, you are not failing. Boredom is the mind's protest against the absence of novelty. But boredom, investigated, reveals itself as craving. You are not bored with the breath. You are craving stimulation. And craving, fully recognized, loses its compulsive quality. Sit with boredom. It will teach you. When you feel skeptical, doubtful, uncertain, you are not lacking faith. You are exercising your most precious faculty, the mind that refuses to be deceived. Use this doubt to investigate more deeply. Do not accept. Do not reject. Inquire. The Buddha himself encouraged this. Do not believe because an elder said so, he told the Kalamas. When you know for yourselves. When you know for yourselves. Not when someone tells you. Not when you read it in a book. When you know. A monk approached his teacher in great distress. "Venerable sir, I have been practicing for 10 years, and still I am afflicted by lust. Still I am afflicted by anger. Still I am afflicted by doubt. What is wrong with me?" The teacher looked at him with great compassion. "For 10 years, the teacher said, you have been fighting these visitors. No wonder you are exhausted. Invite them in for tea." The monk was confused. "Invite them in. Lust is not your enemy. It is energy seeking wise direction. Anger is not your enemy. It is the refusal to tolerate harm. Doubt is not your enemy. It is the mind refusing to be fooled. These are not obstacles to your practice. These are your practice. You have been trying to evict your own teachers." The monk sat in silence. Then he wept. Not from sorrow. From recognition. How does one practice with obstacles? Not by eliminating them. By welcoming them. The next time doubt arises, do not suppress it. Do not argue with it. Simply say, "Welcome, doubt. I see you. What are you protecting? What are you teaching me?" The next time anger arises, do not justify it. Do not shame yourself for it. Simply say, "Welcome, anger. I feel your heat. What injustice are you signaling? What boundary needs strengthening?" The next time fear arises, do not flee. Do not freeze. Simply say, "Welcome, fear. I notice your grip. What loss are you anticipating? What love are you guarding? These visitors are not permanent residents. They arise from conditions, persist briefly, and dissolve. Your hospitality does not invite them to stay forever. It invites them to reveal themselves. And in that revelation, their power over you transforms into wisdom. Breathe with me. Not the breath of avoidance. The breath that turns away from discomfort, that changes the channel when difficult feelings arise, that scrolls endlessly through notifications rather than sitting with what is actually present. That breath is fear wearing the mask of distraction. Release it. This breath turns toward experience. Not grasping. Not fighting. Simply turning. Simply facing. Simply breathing into the very place you have spent your life avoiding. In our first hour, we held the mirror. We saw the self as reflection. In our second hour, we entered the ocean. We dissolved the boundaries between self and other. In our third hour, we received the diamond. We learned to transform poison into medicine. In our fourth hour, we discovered the pilgrim was already home. The path was never elsewhere. In our fifth hour, we welcomed our visitors. Doubt, anger, fear, not enemies but teachers. Now we ask a deeper question. Not, how do I overcome my obstacles? Not, how do I welcome my visitors? But what is it that welcomes? There was once a woman who spent her entire life watching a river. She sat on the same bank, in the same position, from sunrise to sunset. She watched the water flow. She watched the seasons change. She watched the fish leap and the birds dive and the leaves fall and dissolve. She never entered the water. She was the observer, not the observed. The river was what she watched, she was the one watching it. This distinction seemed absolute, unbridgeable, the very structure of reality itself. One evening, as the light failed and the river turned from silver to black, she noticed something she had never noticed before. Her reflection. There, on the surface of the water, was her own face. Rippling. Shifting. Distorted by currents and breezes. And yet unmistakably her. The observer had become the observed. The witness had become the witnessed. The boundary between the woman and the river, absolute for a lifetime, had revealed itself as permeable. She leaned closer. Her reflection leaned closer. Her fingertips touched the water. The reflection trembled, dissolved, reformed. She did not enter the river that evening. But she understood something that changed her forever. The one who watches is not separate from what is watched. This is the sixth map. The map of the witness. Theravāda investigates the self and discovers it is empty of inherent existence. Mahāyāna investigates the other and discovers it is not separate from self. Vajrayāna investigates phenomena and discovers their essence is wisdom. But who is the investigator? Who is aware of your thoughts? Who observes your emotions? Who witnesses the rising and falling of your breath? Who has been present for every experience of your entire life, never once absent, never once changing, never once appearing as an object within experience? You cannot find this witness. Any attempt to locate it turns it into an object, and it is not an object. It is the knowing in which all objects appear and dissolve. It is the screen, not the movie. It is the mirror, not the reflection. It is the water, not the wave. And yet, the screen cannot be separated from the movie. The mirror cannot be separated from the reflection. The water cannot be separated from the wave. The witness and the witnessed are not two. Modern cognitive science calls this metacognition, awareness of awareness itself. It is the capacity that distinguishes human consciousness from mere computation. A computer processes information. A human being knows that they are processing information. But metacognition is not a separate faculty. It is not a higher self observing a lower self. It is the same consciousness, aware of its own activity. There is no observer behind the observation. There is only observing. This is the discovery that liberates. When you recognize that awareness itself is not a thing, not a location, not an entity, you cease searching for it. You stop trying to become more aware, as if awareness were a skill to be acquired. You rest in the awareness that has been present all along, noticing that it was never absent, never damaged, never in need of improvement. The thoughts are not a problem. The emotions are not a problem. The sensations are not a problem. They are simply appearances in the field of awareness. And awareness itself is untouched by them, the way the sky is untouched by the clouds that pass through it. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your body. You are not even your awareness, because your implies possession, and there is no possessor to be found. You are the sky. The clouds come. The clouds go. The sky remains. A student came to her teacher after a particularly difficult meditation retreat. I sat for 10 days, she said. I watched my mind constantly. And do you know what I discovered? My mind is a chaos. Thoughts racing, emotions shifting, attention scattering. I am worse now than when I began. The teacher smiled. Show me your hand. The student extended her hand, palm up. Now make a fist, the teacher said. The student clenched her fingers into a tight ball. Hold it as tight as you can, the teacher said. Tighter. Tighter still. The student's knuckles whitened. Her arm trembled. Now, the teacher said, what is the fist touching? The student looked. My palm. My fingers. And what is your palm touching? My fingers. And what is your awareness touching? The student was silent. Then she understood. Nothing, she whispered. Awareness touches nothing. It is what touches everything. Yes, the teacher said. And the fist, no matter how tight, cannot crush the hand that makes it. The thoughts, no matter how chaotic, cannot disturb the awareness that knows them. You have not become worse. You have simply stopped pretending the clouds are the sky. How does one practice resting in awareness? Not by effort. Effort is for the gym, not for the sky. Simply notice that you are aware. Not your thoughts. Not your feelings. Not your sensations. The awareness in which they appear. Do not try to sustain this noticing. Do not try to deepen it. Do not evaluate it as good or bad, clear or cloudy. Simply notice, and then release even the noticing. Rest. When thoughts arise, do not follow them. Do not fight them. Simply notice that you are aware of thoughts. Rest. When emotions arise, do not suppress them. Do not indulge them. Simply notice that you are aware of emotions. Rest. When the body protests, when the mind grows restless, when doubt whispers, this is pointless, simply notice that you are aware of these visitors. Rest. You are not practicing to become aware. You are practicing to recognize what has always been true. Awareness is not something you achieve. It is something you return to, again and again, until returning becomes effortless. And then you discover, you never left. If this sixth map speaks to you, you have already glimpsed the sky behind the clouds. You have tasted the awareness that does not come and go. You have recognized, perhaps faintly, the witness that cannot be witnessed because it is what witnessing is. Subscribe to Monk's Temple. Not to acquire new techniques. Not to accumulate spiritual experiences. But to practice the art of returning. Again and again. Moment after moment. Press the button below. The sky is not elsewhere. The sky is here, open, empty, luminous, free. Breathe with me one last time. Not the breath of the seeker. That breath is long and deep with longing. It has carried you through mirrors and oceans, diamonds and mountains, thresholds and skies. It has served you well. Honor it. And release it. This breath is different. This breath is the breath of the found. Not found somewhere else. Found here. Not found sometime else. Found now. You have walked 6 maps with me. The mirror of Theravāda. The ocean of Mahāyāna. The diamond of Vajrayāna. The mountain of the pilgrim. The threshold of welcome. The sky of awareness. 6 maps. 1 territory. And you have discovered something the maps could never contain. You were never lost. There was once a drop of water that lived in the vast ocean. It was a very small drop, and it was very concerned about its smallness. It looked at whales and envied their size. It looked at coral and envied their color. It looked at shores and envied their reach. I am not enough, the drop whispered. I must become more. And so it journeyed for eons. Through currents and tides, warm shallows and cold depths. It learned from dolphins and turtles, kelp and vents. It accumulated wisdom beyond measure. And still it felt small. One day, exhausted from endless seeking, the drop simply stopped. It stopped striving. It stopped comparing. It stopped imagining a future self that would finally be enough. And in that stopping, it noticed something it had never noticed before. The ocean was not outside it. The ocean was it. Every molecule was ocean. Every experience was ocean experiencing itself. The whales were ocean. The reefs were ocean. The shores were ocean. The drop did not become the ocean. It had always been the ocean. It had simply forgotten. And the forgetting was not a mistake. It was the ocean's way of experiencing itself as drop, so it could experience itself as ocean. The seeking was not the problem. The seeking was the path. And the path, like the drop, had always been made of ocean. This is the 7th map. The map that contains all maps and then releases them. You did not come here to learn something new. You came here to remember something old. Something you knew before you learned to doubt it. You are not a seeker on the path. You are the path, seeking itself. Self-actualization is not the achievement of a perfected self. It is the recognition that the self you have been trying to perfect was never the point. The Buddha discovered this under the Bodhi tree. Not a new identity. Not a permanent escape. He discovered the seeker and the sought were not two. The drop had always been ocean. And in that discovery, seeking itself came to an end. Not because there was nothing left to seek. Because everything that could be sought was already present, already complete, already free. A young woman came to her teacher in distress. I have practiced 15 years, she said. I am still angry. Still afraid. Still attached. What am I doing wrong? The teacher sipped his tea slowly. Do you taste the tea? He asked. Yes. Do you taste the cup? No. The cup holds the tea, he said. It gives it form. Your anger, your fear, your attachment, these are the cup. They have held you. They have given you shape. They have made it possible to receive the teaching. But now you have tasted the tea. Do not spend the rest of your life polishing the cup. How does one practice homecoming? Not by achieving. Not by accumulating. By ceasing to believe you are away. You are not a beginner. You are not advanced. These are costumes, worn for a time and discarded. You are awareness itself, temporarily convinced it is a person. Sit quietly. Notice the awareness in which all experience appears. Do not try to change it. Do not try to understand it. Simply notice it is already here. Now notice this awareness is not yours. It is not located in your head. Your brain appears within it. Your thoughts appear within it. Your sense of self appears within it. This awareness has never been born and will never die. It is not improved by wisdom nor damaged by ignorance. It is what you have always been, beneath every story, behind every identity. You are not the drop that longs to become ocean. You are the ocean, dreaming it is a drop. And the dream, no matter how long, no matter how convincing, is still a dream. An old monk lay dying. His students gathered, weeping. "Please, teacher," they begged, "give us one final teaching." The old monk opened his eyes. He looked at each of them with infinite tenderness. "You came here seeking a teacher," he said. "You found one. You listened. You practiced. You grew. But I have not been your teacher. I have been your mirror. Everything you learned from me was already within you. I simply reflected it back until you could recognize it as your own. Now the mirror is breaking. Do not grieve. Look at what the mirror showed you. That is your true teacher. That teacher has never been born and will never die. Go home now. The path is waiting. And you are the path. 3 schools. 7 maps. 1 truth. Theravāda, Mahāyāna, and Vajrayāna are not 3 different Buddhisms. They are 3 expressions of one Buddha mind, manifesting for 3 different temperaments, 3 different ways of forgetting and remembering. You do not need to choose. You do not need to synthesize. You need only to recognize that each path, walked sincerely, leads to the same place. Not a place. A recognition. That you were never separate from what you seek. That the path is not leading you home. The path is home. And home is this breath. This moment. This awareness, already present, already complete, already free. Subscribe to Monk's Temple. Not because we have something you lack. Not because you need more teachings, more maps. Subscribe because the path continues, moment after moment, and walking together is sweeter than walking alone. Subscribe because every being who awakens makes awakening easier for every other being. Your recognition illuminates the world. Your homecoming echoes through the vast web of relationship that holds us all. Subscribe because the ocean is remembering itself, drop by drop, and you are both the ocean and the drop, the seeker and the sought, the path and the home. Press the button below. The path is walking you home.